In the opening verse of Surah Al-Qiyamah, God swears, not by a mountain, not by the sun, but by something far more terrifying, the day of resurrection. I swear by the day of resurrection. But why? Why would the creator of time, space, and matter swear by a future event, a collapse? In mathematics, an oath is a constant, a fixed value we build upon. So when God swears, he is telling us, this event is not a metaphor. It is the central singularity of your existence. The day of resurrection is the moment when every variable in your life reaches absolute evaluation. Then comes verse 2, and I swear by the self-reproaching soul. This is not random guilt. This is a divine design. The human soul is recursive. Like a feedback loop in machine learning, it audits itself, adjusts, corrects its moral compass. What we call conscience is not just emotion. It's a built-in gradient descent algorithm. It detects deviation from truth and guides you back, if you allow it. Verse 3. Does man think we will not assemble his bones? Here, denial begins. Man accepts creation, but denies recreation. But why? Because resurrection implies accountability. And accountability requires that our data, our moral actions, our choices are being recorded. The Quran answers, yes, we are able to proportion his fingertips. Your fingertips, not your heart, not your mind, your fingertips. Why? Because they are the fractal identity key that no one else on earth possesses. This is biometric truth. In information theory, this is called a non-replicable entropy seed. God is saying, I will bring you back from the smallest unit that proves you are you. Then, the simulation begins to end. When the sight is dazed, your eyes freeze. Your visual cortex collapses under overload. The input stream of divine truth exceeds your cognitive bandwidth, and the moon is eclipsed, and the sun and moon are joined together. These aren't poetic metaphors. They are the final system shutdown sequences of a cosmic machine. The very forces that measured your time, the sun and moon, are now merged, and with them, time ends. And then the human being, so confident, so logical, asks the question his own math should have answered. Where's the escape? But this is a closed system. No boundary exists beyond the boundary. No backdoor. No hack. In topology, this is called a compact space with no open set of escape. In divine terms, there is no refuge. So, what is this chapter telling us? That the day of resurrection is not superstition. It is the mathematical conclusion of a conscious life system. God doesn't just warn us. He builds the entire universe around the moment you are held accountable. The real question is not, when is the day of resurrection? The real question is, will I be ready when the equation collapses? Your identity. It's not your name, not your body, not even your thoughts. You are a pattern, a complex configuration of decisions, memory, motion, and intent. When God says in verse 4, yes, we are able to proportion his fingertips, he's not merely describing a miracle. He's making a mathematical statement. Your fingerprint is a fractal hash function. It encodes your uniqueness. Fractals are geometric structures that exhibit infinite complexity from simple, self-repeating equations. They appear in galaxies, blood vessels, snowflakes, and your fingertips. You are built from non-replicable entropy, and in divine information theory, that makes you restorable with infinite accuracy. In physics, there's a concept called initial conditions. If you know the original state of a system, its initial values, you can reconstruct everything it did. God says, we will not just rebuild your bones, we will restore your code, not your appearance, your original vector in moral space. Your soul is a function of equals of intention, action, and faith, and it can be run again in full resolution on the day of resurrection. Your soul stores everything. It is a lossless archive of moral experience. You may forget what you did, but your consciousness doesn't. Your body may decay, but your behavioral patterns are stored as algorithmic fingerprints on the scrolls of reality. That's why the next verses say, Man will be informed of what he sent ahead and what he delayed. Your entire life will be presented in nonlinear, multidimensional recall. This is not memory. It's mathematical reflection, like a system mirroring itself in full state, all intentions, all rationalizations, all truths, all lies, compiled, interpreted, rendered. And then comes the collapse. The system halts. Your body fails. Your soul detaches. And what's left? The output. The soul is then confronted with a recursive verification. Man will be a witness against himself, even if he puts forth his excuses. You cannot argue with the equation you programmed yourself. In logic, this is a self-inverting system, a loop where each excuse leads back to the original failure. This is not judgment by force. It's involuntary admission via the logic of your own design. God didn't need to clone you. You are already deterministically regeneratable from the divine registry. The fingertips were just the symbol. The reality is deeper. You are a mathematical object with spiritual charge. And when the system calls you again, it will be from truth to truth with truth. Imagine time collapsing, not metaphorically, literally. The arrow of time, past to present to future, reverses, folds, and dissolves. Why? Because you're about to stand before the one who exists beyond the dimension of time. The scene opens with this verse, when the sight is dazed. Vision, the strongest human sense, now fails. Why? Because the bandwidth of reality just expanded beyond what the eye can handle. You're no longer perceiving light. You're perceiving truth. Raw, absolute, undeniable. The verse continues, and the moon is eclipsed, and the sun and the moon are joined together. This is not astronomy. This is system shutdown. The two great clocks of the sky, the moon that marks months, the sun that defines days, merge. That merging is time nullification. When both light sources collapse into one, the temporal framework ends. The simulation is over. And what's left is the log. Then comes the question. Man will say, where is the escape? But it's too late. In topology, there are domains where no open escape set exists. You're in one. Every potential exit vector has been collapsed. Not because you're being punished, but because you've arrived at the edge of computation. You're no longer a player in the game. You are the final output of your choices. Then, the mirror activates. Man will be informed of what he sent ahead and what he delayed. This is not an emotional reckoning. It's an informational one. Everything you did and everything you postponed is retrieved as weighted data. It's not just what you did. It's how you prioritized. You didn't just live. You ranked your values, and now the ranking itself is the proof. Next, the line hits. Rather, man will be a witness against himself. Not metaphorically, logically. Your soul becomes the verifier function that checks the consistency of your moral algorithm. This is not interrogation. It's system auto-validation. And when God runs your life as a query, you are the one who returns the result. Even if he presents his excuses, you'll try. But excuses don't parse. In logic, false premises create non-deterministic garbage. Excuses are noisy variables that can't fit the proof. Divine systems are signal-based. They strip the noise. And what's left is pure outcome. The simplified, reduced version of you. No masks, no context. Just the truth in its cleanest form. Time has collapsed. The universe has folded. The record has run. And all that remains is the truth about you. This isn't judgment by force. It's the final reveal of the equation you spent your life building. You were the variables. God was the constant. And now the function has been evaluated. In the next phase comes divine transmission. Revelation. What is it really? A text? A message? A poetic echo? No. Revelation is divine computation. It is a stream of non-human intelligence, encoded in language, buffered through consciousness, and executed by the soul. Verses 16 to 19 tell us something remarkable. Do not rush your tongue with the Quran. Indeed, upon us is its collection and its recitation. So when we have recited it, follow its recitation. Then upon us is its clarification. Let's break this down. These 4 verses outline a 3-layered protocol that resembles a modern data transmission stack. Compilation, collection. Transmission, recitation. Interpretation, clarification. God himself takes responsibility for compiling, sending, and interpreting the code. The prophet is simply the runtime environment. And you? You are the receiver. Not to decode, but to align. That's why Allah says, follow its recitation. In signal theory, this is called phase lock. When a weak signal syncs to a stronger source without forcing it, the result is stable harmony. You don't rush revelation. You let it overwrite your internal logic. Revelation is not downloaded by the tongue. It's written into the architecture of the soul. Then we shift from code to outcome. Verses 22 to 24 paint a cinematic image. Some faces that day will be radiant, looking toward their Lord. And some faces that day will be gloomy, expecting a catastrophe to befall them. Why the face? Because the face is a manifold, the most expressive geometric surface of the body. It renders your inner state with high-frequency visual output. A radiant face is not lighted externally. It's the visual solution to a soul that achieved inner moral symmetry. Radiance here is not emotion. It's eigenvalue harmony. In quantum systems, when a particle enters a stable eigenstate, it no longer fluctuates chaotically. Radiant faces have resolved their waveform. They have nothing left to collapse. They are looking toward their Lord. Not out of fear, but because their vector of consciousness already points in his direction. But the others? Faces gloomy, expecting catastrophe. These are not surprised. They're anticipating it. Because deep down, their moral vector was already pointing away from truth. In machine learning, we call this loss of gradient flow when a system becomes untrainable. These faces are not punished. They are the final render of choices that refuse to converge. So, what do we learn from this? That divine computation is perfect. The Quran wasn't written. It was compiled. Your face won't lie. Your soul won't resist. Your outcome will reflect the equation you've lived. And at that moment, you'll either shine with alignment or break under divergence. As the system collapses, the soul begins its departure. Now the process moves from logic to irreversible consequence. The final verses begin to describe the body not as a machine in motion, but as a vessel being decommissioned. No, when the soul reaches the collarbone, that's your signal limit, the last valid input. No new data will enter the system. Your runtime session is over. And it is said, who will cure him? The human response is always the same. There must be a solution. But it's too late. Medicine, therapy, regret, none of them operate here. Because you're not treating a body anymore. You are facing the compiled results of your variables. You don't need healing. You need to submit the output. And he realizes it is the time of separation. Separation between soul and body, between the container and the content, between simulation and truth. In computational theory, this is system dismount. The disk is ejected. The RAM is wiped. Only non-volatile memory remains. That's your soul. And it's now headed for external processing. And the leg is wound about the leg. No more walking. No more motion. This is kinematic collapse. The system has reached 0 degrees of freedom. No energy remains in the vector. The body closes. The interface dies. Only the data core remains, and its path is fixed. To your Lord, that day, will be the procession. This is convergence. In dynamical systems, an attractor is a final state to which all systems gravitate. Your soul has no choice now. Free will is suspended. The simulation is closed. And now you are being absorbed by the source that authored your code. Whether you loved him or denied him, you're going back. But wait, did man think he would be left neglected? That is the fatal error. That life was random. That existence had no verifier. That consciousness was just neuroelectric noise. But God says, were you not a drop of fluid, then a clinging clot, then fashioned and proportioned? Made male and female? You were designed with structured transformations. Mapped, directed, specified. You think the system ends with no post-state? The entire debate collapses here. Were you truly free? Or just executing what you were wired for? The Quran's answer is precise. You had freedom, but every action became a fixed variable in your final function. You were free only in how you shaped your state, but once compiled, that state is now immutable. So, what remains? The human being, once arrogant and autonomous, now lies frozen, motionless, silent. All that's left is the procession, the return. You are no longer living. You are now being delivered to the author of your equation. And the final question is waiting. The body is gone. The data is submitted. The system is quiet. And now there's only one question left. Isn't the one who created you the first time able to bring you back again? This is not just a spiritual question. This is a logical challenge. The one who wrote the original code, who compiled you from fluid to thought, who structured your genome, your gender, your intention. Is he not able to rerun the program? Even Gödel's incompleteness theorem admits this paradox. No system can fully verify its own truth without referencing a higher framework. That framework is God. You are the system. You cannot explain yourself without reaching beyond yourself. And the Quran forces you to confront that. Resurrection isn't absurd. Denying it is. Why? Because if you accept that something came from nothing, then it is only rational to accept that the source can return that something again. Resurrection is the test of your belief in the consistency of the universe. Think about it. You weren't just born. You were compiled. Like layers of functions, physical code, DNA, cognitive code, mind, moral code, conscience, spiritual code, soul. Each layer had an input. Each layer had outputs. And in the end, all layers will be reconstructed for final integration. And yet, God saves the question for last. Isn't he capable? Why last? Because by the time you hear it, all other excuses have collapsed. The soul stands in pure awareness. And the only response left is silence or surrender. And if you answer yes, you are answering not with your tongue, but with your existence. In the end, your life was an equation. L of t equals f of choice, truth, and time. The integral of that function gives your final state. The integral from 0 to infinity of L of t equals your destiny. And now, that integral is closed. The limits are sealed. The output is rendered. You are no longer in the world. You are what you became. And resurrection is not a myth. It is the execution of that truth in front of its source. So the question stands, not for God, but for you. Did you live as if this code would run again? Did you write yourself well? Did you debug your heart? Because the equation never lies, and the programmer never forgets.